I never thought a simple weekend visit could upend my entire life. But when my roommate Jake's dad showed up at our cramped apartment door in downtown Chicago, everything changed. Mr. Thompson, Daniel, as he insisted I call him, stood there with a weathered duffel bag and a smile that seemed to hide a world of stories. His salt and pepper hair catching the afternoon light filtering through the hallway. By the end of that first evening, as we shared a laugh over burnt pizza and old family tales, I felt a pull I couldn't explain, one that made my heart race in ways it never had before. Jake and I had been roommates for 2 years at the University of Illinois, thrown together by the housing lottery our freshman year. He was the outgoing type, always dragging me to parties or study groups, while I preferred quiet nights with books or sketching in my notebook. Jake came from a conservative family in rural Indiana, the kind where Sunday church was mandatory and politics leaned hard right. His parents had divorced when he was young, and his dad, Daniel, had raised him mostly alone after his mom remarried and moved away. Jake idolized his father, a high school history teacher who coached football on the side, the epitome of small-town masculinity. I'd heard stories about Daniel's strict rules and high expectations, but nothing prepared me for the man himself. That Friday afternoon, Jake bounded to the door like an excited kid. "Dad, you made it!" he exclaimed, pulling Daniel into a bear hug. I hung back in the kitchen, wiping my hands on a dish towel, feeling like an intruder in my own home. Daniel's eyes met mine over Jake's shoulder, and there was a warmth there, a genuine curiosity that made me straighten up. "You must be Emery," he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm, his voice deep and steady, with a Midwestern drawl that rolled like thunder over plains. "Jake's told me all about you. Says you're the smart one keeping him in line." We settled into the living room, Jake dominating the conversation with updates on classes and his latest girlfriend drama. Daniel listened intently, nodding and asking questions that showed he cared deeply. But every so often, his gaze would drift to me, pulling me in. "What about you, Emery? Jake says you're majoring in art history. That's fascinating. Tell me about your favorite period." I stumbled at first, not used to adults taking my interests seriously. My own parents, back in Seattle, were more focused on practical careers. They'd been disappointed when I chose liberal arts over engineering. But Daniel leaned forward, his blue eyes locked on mine, and I found myself opening up about Renaissance masters and the way light played in Caravaggio's works. As the evening wore on, Jake excused himself to meet friends for a bar crawl, leaving Daniel and me alone. "Don't wait up," he called, slamming the door. The apartment fell quiet, the city hum outside a distant backdrop. Daniel poured us both a glass of the cheap whiskey he'd brought, and we talked. Really talked. About life, dreams, regrets. He shared how the divorce had shattered him, how he'd buried himself in work and raising Jake to avoid facing his loneliness. "Sometimes," he admitted softly, staring into his glass, "you build walls so high, you forget there's a world outside." I nodded, feeling a kinship. I'd come out to my family in high school, and while they accepted it on paper, the emotional distance lingered. Being gay in a progressive city like Chicago was easier, but the isolation of not fitting neatly into boxes, too introverted for the club scene, too artsy for the jocks, left me adrift. By midnight, the conversation had turned personal. Daniel confessed he'd never dated much after the divorce, focusing on stability for Jake. There was a hesitation in his voice, a vulnerability that drew me closer. When our hands brushed as I refilled his glass, neither of us pulled away immediately. The air thickened, charged with unspoken questions. I excused myself to bed shortly after, my mind reeling. Was I imagining things? Daniel was straight, wasn't he? Jake's stories painted him as the ultimate family man. But that night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had sparked. The next morning, Jake nursed a hangover while Daniel and I made breakfast. Pancakes sizzled on the stove, and we moved around each other with an easy rhythm, like we'd done this 100 times. Jake teased us about our old man vibes, but I caught Daniel's subtle smiles, the way his eyes lingered. We spent the day exploring the city. Navy Pier, Millennium Park. Jake leading the charge, oblivious to the undercurrents. At the Bean, As tourists snapped photos, Daniel and I stood side by side, our reflections distorted in the shiny surface. "Life's like this sometimes," he murmured. "Warped, but beautiful if you look right." My heart pounded. This wasn't just friendliness. It was connection. That evening, back at the apartment, Jake crashed early, leaving us alone again. We sat on the balcony, city lights twinkling below. Daniel opened up more, sharing how society's expectations had shaped him: marriage, kids, the American dream. "But dreams change," he said, his voice low. "Or maybe we just wake up to who we really are." I shared my own struggles, the pressure to conform, the fear of judgment. Our words wove together, building a bridge over the age gap, the complications. When he placed a hand on my shoulder, it was electric. "Emery," he whispered, "I didn't expect this." Neither had I. But in that moment, under the stars, I leaned in, and our lips met, soft, tentative, real. The kiss ended as quickly as it began, both of us pulling back, breathless. "This can't happen," Daniel said, regret etching his face. "Jake, everything." I nodded, but the damage was done. The spark had ignited a fire, one that would test loyalties, challenge norms, and force us to confront truths long buried. The days following that kiss were a whirlwind of stolen glances and whispered conversations, all while Jake remained blissfully unaware. Daniel extended his visit by a week, citing catching up with his son. But I knew it was more. We'd find excuses to be alone. Grocery runs, walks in the park, where our talks delved deeper into the forbidden territory we'd entered. "I've never felt this way about a man," Daniel confessed one afternoon in a quiet cafe near campus. His hands trembled slightly around his coffee cup, betraying the turmoil beneath his composed exterior. "But with you, it's like puzzle pieces fitting I didn't know were missing." I believed him. At 45, Daniel had lived a life scripted by expectations. High school sweetheart turned wife, a son to raise, a career in education where conformity was key. Coming out now would unravel everything. His job, his relationship with Jake, his standing in his hometown. Yet, the pull between us was undeniable. I was 21, navigating my own identity in a world that preached acceptance but often delivered judgment. Dating an older man, especially my roommate's father, screamed scandal. Social media would explode with opinions. Age gap relationships were predatory or inspiring depending on the commenter. But for us it was raw, emotional, real. Jake started noticing the shifts. "You two are getting along great," he said one evening, plopping down with a beer. "Dad's usually so uptight." Daniel laughed it off, but I saw the strain in his eyes. We had to be careful. No touches, no lingering looks. But the tension built, like a storm gathering on the horizon. One night, after Jake went out, Daniel and I sat on the couch watching a documentary on civil rights. The parallels weren't lost on us. The fights for equality, the personal costs. "I envy the younger generation," Daniel said. "You can be open." For me, it was hide or lose everything. I took his hand then, squeezing gently. "It's never too late," I replied. Our kiss that night was deeper, more urgent, fueled by the knowledge of impending separation. When Daniel finally left for Indiana, the apartment felt empty. Jake shrugged it off, back to his routine, but I was adrift. We texted constantly, innocuous messages hiding deeper meanings. "Missed the city lights," he'd write, and I'd respond, "Missed the company more." But reality intruded. Jake's family was planning a reunion, and Daniel mentioned his ex-wife's suspicions about his extended stay. Whispers in his town about his single status had always lingered, but now they felt like threats. Weeks turned into months, our connection sustained by late-night calls. Daniel shared stories of his youth. Crushes on boys dismissed as phases, marriages entered to prove normalcy. I opened up about past heartbreaks, the superficial hookups that left me empty. "With you," I told him, "it's different. It's about who we are, not just attraction." But doubts crept in. Was this fair to Jake? To Daniel's life? Society's lens on gay relationships was already skewed. Add an age difference and familial ties, and it became a minefield. The first major conflict erupted when Jake found an old photo on my phone. A selfie Daniel and I had taken during a walk, our smiles too intimate. "What's this?" he asked, brows furrowed. I stammered an excuse about a group outing, but suspicion planted its seed. That night I called Daniel in panic. "We have to tell him," I urged, "before it blows up." Daniel hesitated. "Emery, this could destroy my relationship with my son. He's not ready." The call ended in tears, both of us torn between love and loyalty. Meanwhile, external pressures mounted. At school, I confided in a friend who warned me about power imbalances in age gap romances. "He's got experience. You're just starting out," she said. Online forums echoed similar sentiments. Some celebrated intergenerational love as mentorship. Others decried it as exploitation. I wrestled with it all, my sketches turning darker, filled with fractured figures and stormy skies. Daniel faced his own battles. A colleague at school questioned his vacation glow, hinting at rumors. His town, steeped in traditional values, viewed LGBTQ issues through a lens of controversy, with debates over pride flags in classrooms raging. Our next meeting came unexpectedly. Daniel drove up for Jake's birthday weekend, the air thick with anticipation. Jake threw a party, friends filling the apartment with laughter and music. Amid the chaos, Daniel and I stole a moment in the kitchen. "I can't stay away," he whispered, his hand brushing mine. But Jake walked in, catching the tail end. "What's going on?" he demanded. The room fell silent as partygoers sensed the shift. Daniel froze. I stepped forward. "Jake, we need to talk." The revelation hit like a bomb. Jake's face crumpled from confusion to anger. "My dad? You're joking." He stormed out, leaving us in the wreckage. Daniel chased after him, pleading for understanding, but Jake's words echoed. "This is sick. How could you?" The party disbanded awkwardly, whispers following us. That night, Daniel and I sat in silence, the weight of our choices crushing. "Was it worth it?" I asked. He sighed. "For you? Yes. But for him." In the aftermath of Jake's discovery, our world fractured into sharp, painful pieces. Jake moved out the next day, crashing with friends while hurling accusations via text. Betrayed by my own father and roommate. Disgusting. Daniel returned to Indiana, but not before a tearful goodbye where he promised to fix things. "Give him time," he said, hugging me tightly. But time felt like an enemy, stretching the silence between us. I threw myself into school, my art becoming an outlet for the turmoil. Canvases filled with abstract representations of forbidden love, entwined shadows against judgmental backdrops. Friends offered mixed support. Some applauded my bravery, others questioned the ethics. "Age gaps are one thing," a classmate said, "but involving family? That's crossing lines." Online, I lurked in LGBTQ forums, reading stories of similar situations. Some ended in reconciliation, others in permanent rifts. The debates were heated. Was love justification enough? Or did societal norms protect against harm? Daniel's calls became sporadic, his voice strained. "Jake's not speaking to me," he'd report. "His mom got wind and is furious, says I'm confusing him." Jake's mother, remarried to a pastor, viewed homosexuality as a sin, her influence strong despite the distance. Daniel attended church more, seeking solace, but found only judgment. "They preach forgiveness," he told me, "but not for this." His job hung in the balance too. Rumors spread in the school district, parents questioning his lifestyle around impressionable teens. In conservative Indiana, such scandals could end careers. I visited Daniel a month later, driving the 4 hours to his modest house in the suburbs. The town felt worlds away from Chicago. Quiet streets, American flags waving, pickup trucks in driveways. Daniel greeted me at the door, looking older, worry lines etched deeper. We spent the weekend talking, walking hand in hand through secluded parks, away from prying eyes. I love you, he said under a oak tree, the words hanging heavy. It was the first time either of us had said it outright. But love came with complications. Neighbors glanced curiously. Daniel tensed at every car passing. Back in Chicago, Jake confronted me at a campus cafe. How long? He demanded, eyes red-rimmed. I told him the truth. From the first visit, the connection, the kiss. He listened, anger giving way to hurt. Dad was my hero. Straight arrow guy. Now this. I explained Daniel's internal struggle, the years of suppression. It's not about us betraying you, I said. It's about him finding himself. Jake softened slightly, admitting his own biases. I grew up hearing gay stuff was wrong. But you're my friend. Or were. We parted on uneasy terms. A crack in the ice. As summer approached, tensions escalated. Daniel's school board called a meeting after an anonymous complaint about his personal conduct. He confided in me, terrified. If I lose my job, what then? I urged him to fight, to come out publicly if needed. But he wavered, torn between authenticity and security. Society's double standards loomed. Straight teachers dated freely, but gay ones faced scrutiny, especially with age differences involved. Media stories of similar cases fueled debates. Rights versus responsibilities, love versus propriety. Our relationship deepened amid the chaos. Weekend getaways to neutral grounds like Wisconsin cabins allowed us breathing room. There, away from judgment, we explored emotions freely. Daniel's regrets over lost time, my fears of future resentment. What if Jake never forgives? I asked. Then we build our own family, he replied, pulling me close. But reality intruded. Jake's texts to Daniel grew accusatory. You're choosing him over me? The climax built when Jake showed up unannounced at Daniel's house during one of my visits. He burst in, finding us cooking dinner together. This is real, he yelled. Arguments erupted. Jake accusing Daniel of midlife crisis. Daniel defending his right to happiness. Me caught in the crossfire. You don't understand, Daniel pleaded. I've hidden for too long. Jake stormed out again, but not before hurling. Fine, live your lie, but don't expect me at the wedding. The fallout rippled outward. Daniel's ex-wife called, threatening to involve lawyers over influencing Jake. Friends distanced themselves. My parents, upon hearing, expressed concern over the drama. Is this healthy? My mom asked. I defended us, but doubts nagged. Was our love worth the pain inflicted? Yet, glimmers of hope emerged. Jake sent a tentative text. Need time, but maybe talk soon. Daniel decided to address the school board openly, preparing a statement on personal privacy and equality. No more hiding, he said. Our bond strengthened through adversity, proving that love, when tested, could endure or break everything. As fall semester loomed, Daniel faced the school board in a packed auditorium, the air thick with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and locals filled the seats, murmurs rippling like waves. I sat in the back, heart pounding, as Daniel stood at the podium. My personal life is just that, personal, he began, voice steady. But rumors have forced my hand. Yes, I'm gay. And I'm in a committed relationship with someone I love. Gasps echoed. Some clapped, others scowled. He spoke of his dedication to students, his years of service, pleading for understanding. Judge me on my work, not my heart. The meeting devolved into debate. Supporters cited anti-discrimination laws. Opponents invoked family values and protecting children. One parent shouted, "What about the age difference? It's inappropriate." Daniel held firm, but the strain showed. In the end, the board tabled the decision, leaving him in limbo. Driving home, he gripped the wheel tightly. Did I do the right thing? I reassured him, but inside I wondered too. Coming out was brave, but at what cost? Jake's silence persisted, amplifying the isolation. I returned to Chicago, classes a distraction from the ache. My art professor noticed the shift in my work. Pieces now explored themes of societal rejection, fractured families. Powerful, she said. But personal? I nodded, sharing snippets. Her advice: art challenges norms. So should life. Inspired, I organized a campus exhibit on LGBTQ stories, including anonymous tales of age gap love. Reactions varied. Admiration from peers, criticism from conservatives. One flyer sparked a heated online thread: normalizing predation versus love knows no age. Daniel visited mid-semester, our reunions bittersweet. We wandered museums discussing future, maybe moving together if his job survived. But Jake's absence loomed. Daniel reached out repeatedly, leaving voicemails of love and apology. Finally, a breakthrough. Jake agreed to meet at a neutral diner in Indianapolis. I waited anxiously as Daniel went alone. Hours later, he called, voice-choked. He listened, didn't forgive, but listened. Jake had shared his confusion, idolizing a father who seemed perfect, now human. Give me space, Jake said, but it was progress. External conflicts intensified. Daniel's school decided to retain him, but with warnings. Parents pulled kids from his classes. Colleagues whispered. In Chicago, I faced my own backlash when Jake's friends spread rumors, labeling me a homewrecker. A confrontation at a party escalated. You stole his dad. I defended our love, but fists nearly flew. Society's microscope on gay relationships amplified every flaw: age, family ties, turning personal choice into public spectacle. Through it all, our emotional bond deepened. Late nights, Daniel shared vulnerabilities. Fears of aging alone, regrets over suppressing his identity. I confessed my insecurities. Feeling overshadowed by his experience, worried about long-term compatibility. We're equals, he assured. Age is just a number. But numbers mattered in debates. Psychological studies cited power dynamics, while success stories countered with mutual growth. We navigated carefully, focusing on communication, respect. Holiday season brought new trials. Daniel invited Jake home for Thanksgiving, hoping for reconciliation. I stayed in Chicago, respecting boundaries. The day was tense. Jake attended but barely spoke. Later, Daniel recounted. He asked about you. Curious, not angry. Small steps. My family invited me west, where I came out about Daniel. Reactions mixed. Support from siblings, caution from parents. He's twice your age, Dad said. Think long-term. I did visions of shared life, travels, quiet evenings. As winter set in, a turning point, Jake called me directly. Why my dad? He asked. I explained the organic connection, the shared souls. It's not about replacing you, I said. It's addition. He sighed. I miss our friendship, and Dad seems happy. We talked for hours, bridging gaps. Forgiveness wasn't instant, but dialogue opened doors. Daniel and I planned a future amid uncertainty. He'd apply for jobs in progressive areas. I'd graduate soon. Love, we learned, required sacrifice, challenging norms, enduring judgment. But it also brought joy. Stolen weekends, deep conversations, unwavering support. Yet doubts lingered. Society's evolving views on LGBTQ rights clashed with persistent biases. Our story fueled personal debates. Was pursuing happiness selfish if it hurt others? We pressed on, committed to authenticity. With spring's arrival, seeds of reconciliation bloomed tentatively. Jake visited Chicago unannounced, knocking on my door. Our old apartment, now mine alone. Can we talk? He asked, looking weary but determined. We sat in the living room, echoes of past laughter haunting the space. He apologized for his harsh words, admitting internalized homophobia from his upbringing. Seeing Dad happy through me, he said. But I get it now, or I'm trying. I shared my side. The unexpected love, the guilt. By evening's end, we hugged, friendship mending slowly. Tell Dad I love him, Jake said, a bridge rebuilt. Daniel's relief was palpable when I relayed the news. He drove up that weekend, the three of us meeting for dinner. A awkward but hopeful affair. Conversations steered clear of romance at first, focusing on neutral ground. School, sports, future plans. Jake cracked jokes, easing tension. "So, you two, dating?" he finally asked. Daniel nodded. "Yes, son. And I hope you can accept that." Jake paused. Then, "As long as you're happy." It wasn't full endorsement, but a start. Family, we realized, evolved beyond blood, forged in understanding. Professionally, Daniel transferred to a more inclusive district near Chicago, escaping small-town scrutiny. The move symbolized fresh starts. He rented an apartment nearby, our time together increasing. Weekends became routines, cooking, hiking, debating politics. Society's gaze followed. Stares in public, online trolls when a photo leaked. But support grew too. LGBTQ groups praised our story as inspirational, highlighting resilience against odds. Personal growth marked our journey. Daniel embraced his identity, attending Pride events for the first time, rainbow flags a symbol of liberation. I matured, learning patience and empathy. Our age difference, once a flashpoint, became strength. His wisdom guided me. My energy invigorated him. Debates raged in our circles. Friends argued pros and cons of such unions, citing studies on longevity or happiness. We lived our truth, proving love's complexity. Challenges persisted. Jake's mom remained distant, her religious views clashing with acceptance. Holiday gatherings split. Some with her, others us. Society's progress was uneven. Laws protected, but hearts lagged. Our story sparked conversations. At dinners, online, in therapy sessions, Daniel started. Was hiding worth the pain? He pondered. Or coming out too late? As graduation neared, I proposed a commitment ceremony, simple, intimate, symbolizing our bond. Jake attended, standing by Daniel, a poignant full circle. Vows exchanged under blooming trees. We promised forever amid tears and cheers. Life post-ceremony settled into normalcy. Shared home, blended routines, ongoing dialogues with Jake. But reflections lingered. Our path highlighted societal fractures. Acceptance versus tradition, individual rights versus family duties. Love triumphed, but at costs, strained ties, public scrutiny. In quiet moments, we questioned choices, affirming them nonetheless. Years later, looking back, the journey's lessons endure. Love defies boxes, demands courage, invites debate. Was pursuing a relationship that challenged family bonds and societal norms ultimately the right choice, or did the potential for harm outweigh the personal fulfillment?